Thanks very much for coming to this event. For those of you who have not met, my name is Guang Chen. I'm the Senior Director for the World Bank's Global Practice in Water. It's really my honor to welcome Laura Tuck, our Vice President for Sustainable Development, to joining us this event. I'm delighted to many of you to come for the presentation today on this, I call it our flagship report in 2017 on Uncharted Water, New Economics of Water Scarcity and Viabilities. I'm also equally delighted that we have a distinguished panel that's joining us from private sector, from civil society, and of course from medias that joining us and discuss about this report. So this is really a great opportunity to share with you the work we're doing on this water analysis that we're trying to do at least once a year. I mean, we do many reports, but I would say only one or two of them, I would call it a flagship report. For those of you who are familiar with work, you may recall the work we did last year, which is on climate change and water. It's called High and Dry Report. So this one is on this particular title, Uncharted Water. So without further ado, let me join me to welcome Laura Tuck to give our opening remark. Thank you.
Wow, it's great to see so many people here. I'm the Vice President for Sustainable Development here at the bank, in case you don't know me. And I'm really happy to be invited to launch this report. And I'm actually even more excited because then I get to go to Amsterdam next week for their water event and get to share it with an even bigger audience. So I'm really happy that it's getting a lot of attention. And so as most of you know, or you wouldn't have come, the report is really looking at questions of water scarcity and variability, which are huge challenges for almost every single one of our clients. And what's interesting and why there's so many people here is that it's not just important for people who work on the water sector, but water touches on every single sector. Sounds pretty obvious, but it means that it's really important for every single person who works in the bank, whether you're working in agriculture or energy or transport or healthcare or environment or whatever. This really matters to you. But what's interesting, and of course you all know this because you work in you work in development, but we have to repeat it, that the challenge is just getting bigger and more complex because the demand is growing exponentially in all of those sectors. We have projections by the OECD that shows by 2030 we can expect water demand to increase by 50% for agricultural use and by 100% or close to 100% for industry. So that's huge, and that's really important. But at the same time, of course, water is already scarce. We see in some places where demand already outstrips supply, but with climate change it's becoming a lot more erratic and less predictable. And we have numbers that already some 4 billion people live in regions where net surface water and groundwater withdrawals already exceed available supply. And so we've got these trends, the two trends working in the opposite directions, and that makes it an unsustainable path if we don't do anything about it. So what's nice about this report, the Uncharted Waters, is it really helps us to understand the economic consequences, and it presents evidence in really different ways that show us how too much or too little water can have an impact on the economy, and it looks at impacts on farms and cities and families, and it really uses what we would consider state-of-the-art econometric techniques. And it finds that losses related to water scarcity are quite significant. And what, at least for me, what was particularly interesting is that water scarcity can have even more severe losses than events related to floods and like excess water. So if you take what the team calls a dry shock, where you look at one standard deviation from the mean, this can cause up to 4 times as much negative impact as having too much water, one standard deviation above the mean. So that's kind of interesting. And that these dry shocks every year cause losses globally that are equivalent to enough food to feed 81 million people. So that's important, and that really should get people's attention to do something. We know that inadequate and unreliable water supplies slow economic activity in cities, but in rural areas, for the rural poor, the effects can be particularly worrisome, and we get what we call poverty traps, where a single rainfall shock can have consequences that then lock people into periods of poverty, into situations of poverty for really long periods of time. So what we want to do today is learn more about how both water scarcity and variability can have these significantly negative effects. They can have effects on people, farms, forests, and businesses. And we want to talk to you a bit about how we can work across sectors, as we said, bringing everyone together, bringing different stakeholders together, so that we really can properly value the water and these effects. And then, obviously, leading from that, we can think about how we can manage it better. And we hope, in particular, that today we will kick off a debate on how we can do this management a lot better than we've done in the past. So as Guang told you, we're very lucky to have a great panel of experts here with us to discuss the report. And one of the authors of the report, Richard Damania, is going to next. He will present to you the main findings, and then we'll have the discussion. So thanks very much for coming. Richard.